Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I will do something different and I will compare all the different versions of DRACOTAIL. So basically you can get a good insight for yourselves. So without further ado, let's begin. First, let's start with some basic stuff. What makes DRACOTAIL good? What is the strength of the archetype? So basically Altherian ability to return monsters from field and graveyard to your hand, or the opponent sometimes, allows the deck to recycle back hand traps or engine pieces required for basically infinite amount of resources and interruptions. And Urgula and traps also help in recycling the monsters and spells. So basically, you have infinite resources and you can decide on if these resources are gonna be hand traps or engine for you to keep comboing. So that's a very good advantage the DRACOTAIL engine has. And basically the list you're gonna play should capitalize on these assets. So let's begin with the standard list, which is the list most people are playing at the moment. I'm not saying it's the best, but it is what it is. So the strength of this list is that it runs a lot of hand traps and it allows a lot of interaction turn 0 because the amount of non-engine you're running are hand traps, and Tizuna and Fimena are also hand traps that can play turn 0. So yeah, this is very good, obviously, playing on your opponent's turn. Although it does not synergize very well with Fenrir if you're going to play turn 0, so you have to be very careful on how to use these turn 0 plays. And obviously, Altherion returning all the different hand traps, it allows you for you to go into a long grind game, and Castera Fenrir plus hand traps are always nice in a grind game. That's what made Castera Finsmith such a good deck. And yeah, Fenrir is also very good into Retaliating Sea, because if you activate something like Ketu and they activate Retaliating Sea, you can just add the monster, you're not gonna fuse, and then on New Chain, Fenrir will banish the Retaliating. So that automatically deals with a very good interruption that your opponent might have. So for the weaknesses of this list is that you're playing a very small DRACOTAIL engine. I know you're playing all the good cards at 3 and the bricks at 2, but this list does not necessarily help what the DRACOTAIL engine wants to do. It does not have extra fusion ways, it does not have searchers for DRACOTAIL. It's just a good card list. And that puts you in a difficult spot to play through hand traps, especially hand traps like As Blossom, sometimes Bell on your traps. So yeah, and it also makes you a bit weaker into the Kanan engine, because if you're not opening Fenrir or Izuna, then one Izuna of your opponents can literally put you in a very hard spot. And it makes a lot of matchups harder. For example, Kanan Crystron, that has a lot of spell trap interactions, can easily force out your spells, and because you're not running Thrust or extra ways to fusion, then an Infinity the Dragster could be it. Unless you open specifically 2 copies of your spells. Also, discarding a lot of hand traps can mean that you're not gonna have enough materials to fusion summon on your turn, so that's something also to note. So, as for my favorite DRACOTAIL list, which is the Dragon Maid, I feel that I needed to address some scenarios that my viewers tell me. For example, the mass normal summon monsters, that we have basically a lot of normal summons, so I will address that. So for the strengths, a higher amount of engine helps in setting an unbreakable board, because the board is unbreakable, and it has multiple interactions. For example, banish, omnigates, pops more than Gulamel, for example, and it plays very very well into Kanan boards and around Kanan if you go first. The Kanan boards can easily break with the amount of spells you have, because the Kanan decks like Vanquishal do not have spell trap negates, and Crystron does have spell trap negates, 2 of them, but you can easily play around that because you have a lot of ways to fusion summon. So you also have a bigger amount of fusion monsters in your extra deck, and that allows more flexibility in your combos, and it doesn't suffer from too many normal summons, because there are a lot of ways to bridge the engines. even through the most threatening hand traps like Ash Blossom. For example, if they do have Ash Blossom, they should use it on Rahu. But what the Dragon Maid engine does is it makes them more hard to hand trap you, because if they activate a hand trap on Rahu, they might not, if they wait to hand trap Rahu, they might not even get a chance to do that. Because Dragon Maid can put up SEO early, you can add changeover, so you can basically have an Altherion using 2 monsters, and then you can bounce back the changeover and then make SEO in a lot of combos. You can also play around the Kanan cards, because Dragon Maid do not activate in the hand or graveyard, except specifically the new Dark Monster, which is this one. So yeah, as I said, the Dragon Maids don't trigger Kanan, and they help you against Retaliating Sea, because you go into Striker Dragon, and if they activate Retaliating Sea on Hospitality, which they should, you then go into SP, you're not locked into dragons, and then you banish Retaliating. So that's something pretty strong. Also, Magnamut is even stronger in this deck because you have more options to search. And yeah, it's generally a pretty good deck with a lot of extenders. The weaknesses of this deck is that it plays less hand traps, less non-engine. Although the non-engine amount is good for a 43 card deck, it doesn't play a lot of low value hand traps like Ghost Ogre, Ash Blossom, that are low impact but necessary to have. And it does play only high impact hand traps like the Charmis, Droll, and Ash Blossom, because it's more for the Fugalos, which this deck does have a weakness to Fugalos, because it special summons a lot from the extra deck. But it doesn't mean necessarily you will lose to Fuga. And the opponents can make full endboard unless you hand trap them and the hand trap resolves. But that hand trap has to be something beneficial for the matchup. And yeah, basically game 1 the deck is weaker versus Yami, because you're not playing the hand traps that hurt necessarily the Yami matchup. Although you do play Fuga, Magnamut, these cards are good in the matchup, but you're not running a lot of hand traps that hurt specifically Yami, which obviously you can very easily play around that, because post side deck you see the Kaijus, the Dark Rulers, all of these cards can help you versus Yami. And at the moment it is a bit weaker into Paradise Smasher, but it will get banned in a month or so, so for the next formats it will be very good, this list. So the Primate list. The strength of this list is that it has very good grind game, thanks to the Primate cards, and it also has very good Yami matchup due to the Primate Fusion that says, basically what it says is that Link 1s and Level 1s have their effects negated, and basically Yami all it does is having a Link 1 and the Level 1s activating their effects. So if they can't do that, they will not win the game. Plus, setting up a board with 2 Omni Negates in the form of Dragoon and Drill Beam is always very strong, and the fact that you can Dragoon turn 0 or in your opponent's turn is very good. Also against Kanan, because Kanan only have one way of beating that, which is Nash Knight, and you can just hold your interruption for this specific monster. Weaknesses of this deck. So, the engine does not bridge very well with DRACOTAIL, because in order to do your best combo, you have to open Lorded Load plus a way to go for DRACOTAIL engine. And if you open Beryl and not a DRACOTAIL spell, then you are in a pretty difficult spot. Also, less spot for non-engine than the pure list. It does run a good amount of non-engine, but not as much as the pure list. And it does have a normal summon problem, because Beryl cannot be breached with Secretarian, since it totally triggers on normal summon, so you don't have the freedom of sequencing the way you like. You have to do it in a specific way, which some scenarios it hurts you a lot. So, blind second list, one of my favorite again. This list is very fun to play, and I have a lot of success with it, specifically against the Kanan Vanquishal matchup, because Vanquishal Kanan does not have a way to negate spell or traps except specifically as Blossom. And this deck, going second, has 9 ways of Branded Fusion, then 2 Thrust, and the Charmis. So there isn't a way for them to Ash Blossom efficiently. And you can break their board very easily with this. It has very good going second, obviously, and it can break a lot of boards thanks to the Shadow package. Also, having 6 Mulcharm in main is pretty strong going second, and you're never worrying about breaking on Charmies because you're always going to go second. If you lose the dice or win the dice, you still are going second. So that's pretty strong. And also the Shadows offer a lot of synergy with the Dragontail because you're going to fusion, and they trigger on sending them to the graveyard as materials, and it also gives you an option of turn 0 window. So that's obviously very strong. The weaknesses of this list is that it's pretty bad when some opponents realize that they have to make you go first, because you're not having a lot of going first cards. So if you're playing at locals or a small regionals that you are known, they will start making you go first, and then you will see your win rate starting to fall down. But yeah, it's also very bad into retaliating because of the many spell amount, although you do play 2 Thrust, 1 Talent and 1 Dark Ruler to play around that. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend this list for events lower than a big regional, as the people will start choosing you to go first, as I said. But overall, it's pretty strong. So the Cartisia list is a list that is meant to fix the problems the previous one had. The previous one can't absolutely go first. You have to open a very specific hand to go first and do more than just basic Dragontail stuff. So, the strength of this list is, while it solves the issues that the going second had, Cartisia allows you to fusion into Gregignol or Secretarion or even Altherion, so you have a lot of flexibility in your combos, and it has good balance between engine and non-engine, pretty strong endboard due to Schism, and you can always win the lock your opponent thanks to the Shadows, which is very strong. The weaknesses of this list is that it locks you into fusion way earlier due to the fusion deployment, which should be your starter, and it also plays just a tiny bit harder into Fuga, which this deck does not necessarily lose to. This deck does not lose to Fuga, but when you start playing fusion deployment, you are giving your opponent 1 or 2 more draws than usual. It also had a few breaks in the form of Schism and the Shadow Fusions, because you're not necessarily wanting them in your starting hand, and you already have the traps, the Pan and Urgula, which sometimes you don't want to see in your hand. So yeah, sometimes you can break with this list. It's not often, but it can happen. And yeah, it also plays bad into Retaliating Sin Barrier because it locks you earlier into fusions, so you can't dodge it basically with an SP or with a Dark Ruler, because the other list was playing Dark Ruler. So yeah, this is an inconvenience, let's say. Lastly, this is a Kanan list. It revolves more around the Kanan cards than the pure list, because you're playing Lantern and Jokel as well. Chaotic Elements is pretty good in this deck because you can add it with Thrust, then you can go into the Kanan combo. It's also pretty good into Rizal if they don't stop playing Rizal, because Chaotic Elements can basically be starter plus board breaker against Detonator, so that's pretty good. And it has a lot of turn 0 possibility as the pure list because of Izuna and the Femena. It plays good amount of hand traps plus the thrust into talents, and the Exist toolbox is pretty useful in some scenarios, thanks to Zeus, the Kanan Reaper, the Valon. So yeah, the weaknesses of this list though is that it has a bit of anti-synergy with each other, because you need to see at least 2 Dragontail cards in your starting hand in order to do Dragontail combo, and the Kanan engine does not necessarily help you do that. So that's pretty bad, because there are a lot of games where you play with only one of the 2 engines, and that's pretty bad. So yeah, in order to do your best combo, you have to have 2 Dragontail cards, a Kanan, and you have to hope that your opponent uses a monster hand trap so you can go into Reaper, protect yourself from other hand traps. Yeah, this is not a very likely scenario. It can happen, but It does not happen most of the games, and it also makes the list lose just a bit more into Droll and Lockbird, which generally Dragontail lists do not lose to. So yeah, this is my comparison of the most famous, at least, Dragontail variants. So thank you for watching. I hope this was insightful, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And obviously, no, I did not forget about the branded variant, but let's be honest, I don't think branded is gonna be the best choice, and I don't think it's gonna be a popular choice. It can be, but branded variant plays more like branded than Dragontail, and they use the Dragontail cards as an engine and not as the main focus of the deck, so that's why I didn't mention it. So, again, thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.